What's worse than having one homicidal doll coming after you? And each of their jokes suck. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my look at the Child's Play franchise. Today, Chucky multiplies in an insane asylum in Cult of Chucky. Curse did not have a large net profit since it was direct-to-video, but in its first month of release, it earned $3.8 million in domestic sales. The critical and fan reception was very high, being praised for its return to horror roots, well-done direction from Don Mancini, and shockingly good cinematography for a direct-to-video release. In 2015, Mancini began writing a script for a follow-up film, and by 2016, he, Fiona and Brad Dourif, Jennifer Tilly, and alumni Alex Vincent confirmed that they would be returning with production beginning in 2017. The story would pick up 4 years after the events of Curse, with survivor Nika being transferred to a medium-security psychiatric hospital. However, Chucky is able to somehow infiltrate the facility and seemingly be able to be in multiple places at once. Andy Barclay must race to the hospital in order to help Nika fend off the little devil. Would this sequel be able to live up to the Chucky hype that was built after the success of Curse? Let's take a look. The movie begins with Andy Barclay on a date, but the girl he's with discovers his dark history and isn't totally comfortable being with him, so she bails. He drives back to his cabin in the woods, which is armed to the teeth with guns. A hidden safe is revealed to show he kept Chucky's severed head after blowing it off at the end of the previous movie. Boy, he's looking really bloody and messed up there. But I thought Curse showed that he could withstand such injuries because he's just a doll. The two share a joint. How does a severed head breathe in like that? But Andy decides it's time to play after Chucky keeps running his mouth.
Sometimes it's nice just hanging out on a Friday night.
So this opening is pretty cool. Andy is still clearly struggling after all these years, but he does give off the appearance of being a badass after we see what he's been doing with Chucky. It's twisted to see his only joy comes from the severed head he has nailed down and tortures on a weekly basis, but considering their history, Andy gets a pass on this. Cut to Nika receiving some cruel electroshock therapy and having a discussion with Dr. Foley, who has convinced her that Chucky isn't real and she murdered her family. Her progress gets her sent to a medium security facility where she meets Carlos, who is kind but isn't her biggest fan since she's an alleged murderer. The overly white and dull hospital holds some very colorful victims, characters, including Angela, who thinks she's a ghost, and Michael, who within several minutes of meeting Nika, bangs her in the stairwell.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
In a group meeting, we're introduced to Claire, who is very belligerent about her hatred for Nika, and Madeline. Angela sits up in the background and tells Nika she spoke to Chucky last night, and he's coming for her. Foley wants to put the matter to bed by bringing in his own good guy doll named Chucky. Madeline latches onto the doll, calling it her baby. We also find out Michael's real name is Malcolm and suffers from multiple personality disorder.
Say it.
Because we're the same person.
That's right.
Nika then gets a visitor in the form of Tiffany, who introduces herself as her niece Alice's legal guardian, Miss Valentine.
Did anyone ever tell you look exactly like Jennifer Tilly?
Yeah, I get that a lot.
She breaks the news to Nika that Alice died, calling it a broken heart, but she wanted her to have a gift in the form of her Chucky doll. That night, Chucky sneaks out and grabs himself a scalpel, giving us our first look at the new design, which is much better than it was in Curse, but he has a run-in with Angela.
Aren't you the crazy bitch I talked to last night on the phone? You know what? You're next. Jesus. Fucking cuckoo's nest.
He gets to Nika's room, but sees she slit her wrist with a broken wire from her wheelchair, feeling guilty over Alice's death. However, she wakes up in the morning with her arm stitched up and a bloody message. Angela was not so lucky though, as she's found dead with her wrist slit. Another group meeting begins with Claire blaming Nika for Angela's death, while Malcolm has her back, blaming Chucky. Madeline's entrance shows that there are two Chuckies, leading Nika to figure out that Miss Valentine was Tiffany Valentine, Chucky's girlfriend. She starts to believe he has returned, but Foley burns the one doll's fingers to prove that there's nothing strange going on. Determined to prove she's right, Nika wants to burn Madeline's doll too, but she leaves, as does everyone else. Malcolm volunteers to help Nika and goes outside to get Madeline. Nika observes as Chucky flips her the bird, but then gets tossed into an open grave, along with Malcolm. Meanwhile, Claire goes to dispose of the other Chucky, but gets bit before she can dump him. The doctors think she injured herself and resort to restraining and drugging her up. Then in a weird split-screen scene, Nika watches Malcolm and Chucky rise out of the grave, with Malcolm looking a little more psychotic. With all the commotion outside, there's no one around when Claire is attacked by Chucky, who launches a tank of compressed oxygen into the glass ceiling, causing the shards to decapitate her.
Sometimes I scare myself.
Very reminiscent of the champagne mirror kill from Bride, but I'll admit this one is more pleasing to the eye and ends more gruesomely. Andy gets wind of the murders as Chucky clues him in onto what's going on.
You thought I was the only one?
Yes, I did. At no point would I have ever imagined that there were multiple versions of you running around, Chucky. Andy takes out a short-haired Chucky, then takes off in his truck. At the facility, Nika is also on to Chucky's game.
I think both dolls are alive somehow.
She insists she isn't a killer, so Foley hits her up with some drugs, weird hypnotherapy, and sexual abuse. What a fucking creep. I think Chucky agrees after knocking him out.
Holy shit! And they call me sick?
He encourages Nika to join the club and kill Foley, but it fades to a weird dream that includes a ghostly visage of Alice and a gigantic Chucky. Not sure what the point of that was. The next day, Andy is on his way to the hospital when he gets a call from Tiffany, who wants him to join the growing cult. At the hospital, Malcolm says his name is now Charles, but Nika ignores him to keep an eye on Madeline. She tries to breastfeed the doll, but afterwards suffocates it in the way that was familiar to when she killed her real baby. Nika goes after Chucky, but Foley decides they need to bury the past and hold a burial for Madeline's Chucky baby. That night, Andy tries to get inside the hospital, but when security refuses, he punches the guard out to get himself committed. Nika sees Chucky bust out of the grave, but the other one sneaks in and attacks her with drugs. In Foley's office, he receives a package that contains the short-haired Chucky Andy pulled out earlier. In Madeline's room, she gets a visit from Chucky, who has a surprise gift for her. It looks like a suicide, and it's too much for Nurse Ashley to handle as she hands over her badge to Foley. Nika is found in Foley's office in a straitjacket, courtesy of Chucky. Foley resorts to his gross hypnotherapy, also giving her a pair of red high heels and kissing her feet. Oh, I hope you get it the worst. Chucky knocks him out again and encourages Nika to kill, but the dirty Chucky walks in to alert normal Chucky that Andy is in the building. They decide to wake up the short-haired Chucky and get into some witty banter before explaining how this was all possible.
I came across this groovy new spell on voodooForDummies.com that changed everything. Now, I can be me, and me, and me.
Wow, that is a lazy explanation. You're basically saying Chucky's goal for the first 5 movies, which he renounced in Seed, could have been as simple as looking up a spell on Voodoo for Dummies. There's no Heart of Damballa either, he just says the chant and he can split his soul into another body. That's another thing. I'm not sure what the actual deal is when it comes to these dolls and the personalities. They're all supposed to be Chucky, but through their mannerisms and speech, they seem completely different from what we actually know to be Chucky and are their own entity. It's a little confusing, and to sum it all up with a spell found on the internet is nonsense. Anyways, Chucky admits that he possessed Alice too and got her killed, but the revelation is short-lived as we see Carlos has been in the room. For such a nice guy, poor Carlos got an incredibly harsh and relentless death. The three then get into an argument over who gets to kill Andy.
Hello? Look at my hair. Oh shit, you win. Absolutely. Sorry, pal, you go fuck him up real good. Have fun.
Outside, the security guard spots a random car with only a Tiffany doll as a passenger. He then gets his throat slit by Tiffany. Boy, for someone who complained that Chucky wasn't creative with his kills, Tiffany has repeated the same exact kill 3 times. Chucky then takes it upon himself to transfer his soul into Nika's body, somehow giving her the use of her legs back, enough so to give Foley a good stomping. That shit is nuts! Dude totally deserves what is perhaps the nastiest death in the franchise. Malcolm shows that he's killed Nurse Ashley because he's Charles, but Chucky Nika calls him a fraud. Malcolm breaks down, calling himself Multiple Malcolm, who can hear voices in his head.
I can still hear Chucky inside my head!
The two Chuckies share a laugh, while short-haired Chucky goes after Andy in his holding cell. A fight ensues, but Andy is able to reach into Chucky and pull out a gun, shooting him several times.
Thanks for coming after me. Saved me the trouble.
Fuck you!
Again, I have to ask, where was all the blood in Curse? Nika Chucky witnesses the kill and locks Andy inside, while the dirty Chucky takes his place on the couch. Nika Chucky and Tiffany have a passionate kiss and share a laugh along with the Tiffany doll sitting in the back seat, riding off into the snowy night. But there's another after-credits scene with the return of an old friend.
Kyle?
Andy sent me. We're gonna have some fun.
My overall thoughts on Cult of Chucky. It's honestly my second least favorite in the series. My positives would be that the kills are fairly awesome, it still looks good cinematography-wise, and I enjoy the opening. Kills are a nice blend of creative and extremely gory, so I give it props for being an entry that contains some of the best deaths in the series, my favorite of course being the stomp on Dr. Foley. I do like the design and color palette used for the setting of the institution with the bright whites mixed in with the grays. It's aesthetically pleasing to look at, especially when you throw in the colorful Chucky doll and splatter blood everywhere. And yeah, I like the opening because it gives Andy the appearance of being a badass with his prized Chucky head that he tortures to no end. Also, it's awesome that he sends Kyle back to his cabin to take his place in punishing Chucky at the end. I will also mention that Chucky's design is an upgrade, although I do miss the stitched up look. However, I don't like his personality throughout. I think this is the closest he gets to being annoying Freddy Krueger levels of quipping, and for some reason it just doesn't feel like Chucky. I don't know any other way to explain it except when I'm watching him, regardless of which of the 4 to 5 versions we get, I don't sense that I'm dealing with the Chucky from the previous 6 movies. For as much as I destroyed Seed, Chucky still felt like his regular self and was the only good thing about the film. I can't say it's Brad Dourif's voice acting because he always does a good job, but maybe it's more so those seemingly different personalities given to each doll. I truly don't know what they were going for, whether it was that every good guy doll awakened had the soul of Charles, but also had its own little train of thought instead of being one sound mind since it's supposed to be the same guy. They have conversations with each other that come off as far too silly, almost reaching Seed levels of absurdity. We went back to horror in Curse for a reason. Why go back to horror comedy? I really despise the fact that this revelation of multiple Chuckies is quickly explained, crediting voodooForDummies.com. That was a funny joke in Bride with Tiffany, but to use it as the base for something that is a major deal in the world of Chucky is weak. And they seemingly imply Tiffany can split her soul too because of the doll laughing in the back seat of the car. I think fans have always wanted to see several Chuckies running around, but I personally don't like how it was pulled off here. Things get too convoluted with either messy or non-existent explanations. They try to get you to guess what is going on and keep you on your toes, but it seemed blatantly obvious what was going on. I preferred the twist reveal halfway through Curse since it was executed much better. I think the acting, while a step up from Curse, is very meh. Definitely a bigger cast, but they're very one-dimensional with their cuckoo's nest qualities of why they're so crazy. It almost starts to feel like a ripoff of Nightmare 3 Dream Warriors, but those characters were actually interesting and people you rooted for. The Doctor ends up being a pervert, which is unsettling to watch at times. Angela's the most nuts, thinking she's a ghost, but it's played for laughs instead of being more tragic. Claire is just mean and seemingly has a bone to pick with everyone. Madeline is getting over killing her baby by adopting a doll, and Malcolm's multiple personality disorder is only there to make you think he could also be Chucky by the end. If they were smart, they would have kept his disorder a secret until the end reveal. Of these characters, I'd actually say Madeline's actress did the best job because they definitely focused on her enough that you felt her grief for her lost child. I must say that I was disappointed in Nika's character though. Fiona puts on a good performance, but I can't say I prefer it to the one from Curse. She does seem stiff at times and is not as proactive as she once was. Although you could blame the therapy and abuse she suffered for that, but it leaves her with nothing to do for most of the runtime. It was interesting to see that she was manipulated into thinking she killed her sister and the others, which allowed Chucky to take advantage and attempt to make her actually kill someone. I'm not a fan that Chucky was able to possess her in the end, but I hope it leads to an inner battle between her and Chucky in a sequel. One plus side is that Fiona does a fairly fun impression of her father. The worst acting comes from Alex Vincent and Jennifer Tilly, which is a shock considering considering they're veterans of the series. After the opening, Andy is just super monotone even when he's attempting to be intimidating. I have no idea what his fucking plan was, but it backfired because I don't think he knew either. He sent that short-haired Chucky to the facility for reasons. Maybe so he could have the gun he implanted in its stomach, but he wasted all of the bullets. How was he going to save Nika by punching a guard and getting himself committed in self-isolation? It's a shame that we get Vincent back, and after making him look so cool at the start, Andy ultimately becomes an idiot with no clue. And Jennifer Tilly? Woof. She is terrible in the few scenes she's in. Her delivery on lines is cringe-inducing. The Tiffany we enjoyed is long gone with her over-the-topness. I believe the fire that Curse relit for the franchise after Seed may have been blown out once again here. Despite having amazing kills and still looking great for straight-to-video, I'm not a fan of how tangled the plot becomes, Chucky's odd personality changes, and subpar performances, most disappointingly from Alex, Jennifer, and to a lesser extent Fiona. I give Cult of Chucky 2.5 syringes out of 5. But let me know what you guys think. Am I being a little too hard on the movie, or is it really too confusing and lackluster? Did you like the use of multiple Chuckies? Were you happy with Alex Vincent's return as Andy Barclay? And what was your favorite kill? Don't forget to subscribe and follow my Twitter and Instagram. Links to those are in the description. Next week, Chucky gets remade into an artificial intelligence entity in Child's Play 2019. Until next time, peace.